Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Environmental Podcast. This is our podcast where we deep dive into the synergies of business and sustainability. And we are your hosts. My name is Courtney. This is Ob. And we are the founders of Dandelion Branding as well. But on this podcast, so today we are talking with Elisangela Mendonça, who is an award-winning investigative journalist and the senior forest investigator for Global Witness, which is an incredible organization and news outlet that has the goal of making a more sustainable, just, and equal planet, which is an incredible organization. So thank you so much for being here, Elisangela.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Really excited. I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us how you started in investigative journalism and where you started and sort of how your journey came to be.
Right. I will need a long answer for that. No, just kidding. I've been a journalist for 16 years now, and I've been working more specifically with investigative journalism in the past maybe 6 years. I'm Brazilian and I have a lot of interest in environmental coverage. So I've been in recent years, I specialized in the climate breakdown and human rights issues. And I concentrated a lot of my energy and time in the past years looking into Amazon deforestation, indigenous rights violations, and how this is all linked to global supply chains.
Yeah, I read your article on PepsiCo and the deforestation there. And that was your last investigative piece before moving to Global Witness, right?
Yes, that's right. I worked on this piece linking the production of snacks such as Doritos, Cheetos, and these products that you find in any supermarket around the world to deforestation in Peru. And this was done via supply chain of palm oil that's a major driver of deforestation in the Peruvian Amazon. So I looked into what was going on there and also found indigenous land invasion. So I decided to track the origin of the ingredients used for these specific brands. And the result was devastating deforestation in the Peruvian Amazon.
It's amazing. How long does an investigative piece typically take, or does it vary? Like what?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Usually, well, it depends. I think this is the most honest answer, is that it really depends on the complexity of what you're trying to find out, the access that you have, the sources that you have, and the knowledge that you can get when you're actually reporting it. But for investigations such as the ones that I'm involved in, usually, that involved either big players, big companies, or complex supply chains or multi-layered supply chains, that take several months. So, for example, this investigation that you mentioned, looking into PepsiCo, that took us maybe 4 months to put everything together and trace every single chain of this supply chain. But for example, it can take a year. The other investigation that I worked on recently, linking collagen, which is this product that you can mix in your drink to have better health, better joints and muscles. And it's like a wellness product these days. I linked this product specifically to deforestation in the Amazon in Brazil. And that took us almost a year to put every piece together and confirm all the links that we thought existed.
Wow.
We're quite curious about the processes because it sounds, you're taking on some big systems of power and big corporations here. And the amount of work that must go into, right, checking all of those sources and ensuring that what you're putting out there is accurate. It's pretty mind blowing. I can't even imagine kind of what that process of fact checking is like.
Yeah, it's something that I think it's very important. This is one of the main roles of journalists, right? So we are the ones checking everyone else. So we are holding companies and holding governments accountable for their doings. So I think journalists, they play a key role in any healthy democratic society. So it's our duty to just look into what they're doing. But also, if these companies really are trying to avoid any reputational risk, they should do better. So they should monitor their supply chains and their operations. They should improve the way that they do business, improve their business practices, the origin of the ingredients that they use to produce their they're good. So I think that there's the sad thing is that there's a lot of work for journalists these days, because companies are simply more concerned about their reputation and about greenwashing their actions, rather than just promoting the structural change that we need to see to tackle the climate crisis.
Absolutely. And your quote about playing a central role in the democratic societies, that's something that you say a lot. And I actually pulled that quote from your LinkedIn page to ask you about it. So that's great that you covered it yourself. But now I think it is time for one of our favorite parts of this show. But before we jump in, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because we are here for you every first and third Wednesday of the month with another inspiring sustainability talk. Thank you so much for your support. Elisangela, please tell us about the role that you and investigative journalism in general really play in this transition to a more sustainable and safer future.
I wish I could tell you that I play a role, but honestly, this is a drop in the ocean, and sometimes it can be exhausting, I have to say, just opening my heart here. It can be very exhausting to think that I've been doing this work for several years. I keep on exposing companies. I keep on exposing financial institutions, bankrolling, degradation of forests around the world. And yet there's so much to uncover, and there's so much going on. And it's difficult to actually change things substantially. I think that can generate some fatigue for journalists doing this. And I have to say, I'm a victim of this. I guess I'm tired sometimes. But what keeps me going is that the climate crisis is very urgent, and we don't have time to keep on waiting for either governments do their jobs or companies to one day executives wake up and they start worrying about the planet and not about their profits, because this is not going to happen. So I feel that what I can do, and this is such a small part, what I can do is just keep pushing and keeping putting pressure on whoever is in charge, making the decisions for all of us. So I think I'm a bit of a romantic about journalism, and I really love what I do. And I'm very passionate about journalism because I think that journalism can help change the world for the better. But it's definitely not only one reporter or one newsroom or one journalist. It's like a collective of journalists really working towards public interest, really working towards trying to build a better society by informing citizens and providing the information so they can make their own decisions, vote for better politicians, or push their representatives to change what needs to be changed.
Wow.
I'm going to cry now.
Yeah, that hit really hard. We're often on the other side of that coin. We're a marketing agency. Our clients are only folks that are doing good in social and environmental causes. So, and we come up with the same fatigue, the same tiredness. We're fighting the same fight. We're pushing the positive education. It is a role. We have to hold that passion and feel like we are playing a really important part in this educational piece, as you're saying, and giving people facts so that they can make better choices. I mean, fingers crossed that one day somebody will read one of your articles or something exciting about some regenerative thing that we've written and say, you know what, I think I'm going to change my ways. We can just have a big fingers crossed on that.
Maybe I can add something about that. So I've been focused on working on public interest journalism. So I think when I decided to pursue a story, I would decide to pursue a story if the story can generate more impact. So more impact in the world, so more positive impact. So for example, if I have to pick between two stories, that one I think will really help to drive some change, I would go for it and I would prioritize that. So this has been my life in the past when I was working for the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, which is a London-based public interest focused newsroom. It's the biggest investigative outlet that's independent in the UK, and they're very focused on impact. Now I'm working for Global Witness, which is a nonprofit climate organization using a combination of public interest investigations and advocacy to change key pieces of legislation and regulations and to tackle the climate crisis and hold companies and governments accountable. So I'm still very focused on changing things and for the better and looking into impact. But I think that the way that usually companies to what we do is that, oh, how can I paint this in a colorful way so it doesn't show that I am actually harming the environment or driving these, human rights violations elsewhere. So I think we really need something that can transform from the basis of how we do business. Sorry, maybe this is not clear, so maybe I'll try and rephrase that. But I think that what we really need is a change of mindset, especially from companies, because we have very powerful companies that have a global coverage. We were talking about multinationals, Nestle, PepsiCo, Cargill, Bunge, all these like massive agricultural companies that are everywhere. If it are on our dinner plates, they are on supermarket shelves. We can, for example, eat something that has not been produced by these big agriculture giants. So these companies hold a lot of power, and I think we really need to change the way that these businesses see fighting the climate crisis, because this is not a cost. This should be seen as an investment. It should be seen as an investment for the survival of all of us. I don't know if this makes sense.
Totally makes sense. We are, definitely on board with that.
And that's one of the things I find most strange about some of these massive corporations that are making decisions that are so detrimental to people and the planet. It's just like, what do they expect? Like, if there aren't people left that don't have like money to buy their product, or, if no one's around, like, what is the end goal of just this like relentless pursuit of capital? It's crazy to me. I truly don't understand that mindset at all. So, I mean, it's interesting to hear that that's what we're up against, I suppose.
I don't really trust in voluntary or self-implemented mandates or rules for companies. So I don't really believe in voluntary commitments for a better future or a better environment. So usually they don't work. So I think that maybe what's necessary is that governments really, really play their role in creating regulation and legislation, and most importantly, they enforce them so companies can be held accountable for what they do, and they start prioritizing the survival of the planet, of the humankind. The planet's going to be fine. It's us that are going to die.
Right. The planet's going to be fine. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing that the government, that's an interesting topic that you bring up, because, for instance, deforestation in the Amazon is not legal, and but the government isn't really enforcing that with these large companies, right? As you're also uncovering, I'm kind of wondering about, like, when you're doing these investigations and you're coming up against real corruption and exposing real corruption and real issues, like, do you ever feel like you're in danger, or like, you could step on the wrong toes somewhere, or, is there a line that you don't want to cross or anything like that?
I think for these kinds of investigations, there are always risks, and especially when you're working on the ground, there are definitely risks, because certain areas of the Amazon, they are violent areas. You don't have law enforcement, so it's very easy to be caught up in a dangerous or complicated situation, in a clash with ranchers or illegal loggers or illegal miners and that kind of thing, because this is what's going on in the Amazon today. I would also like to point out that, well, there's plenty of evidence that this is a dangerous job, because we over and over again news about land and environmental defenders being killed, people that are on the front lines trying to protect forests and the environment for all of us. They're just being killed for trying to do so. But this is also happening to journalists. And I wanted to also point out that yesterday was completed 2 years of the killing of a colleague of mine, Dom Phillips. So Dom was a journalist, a British journalist that was based in Brazil. And he was killed in the Amazon when he was doing one of his reporting trips with Bruno Pereira, an indigenous expert. So I knew Dom. I know that he was not a reckless person. He was very careful, and he did the right risk assessment, and he did everything right. And yet he was killed because that's a dangerous area. So this kind of journalism, it really, really has its risks. But the way that we do this is the safest way possible. So, for example, my previous organization, I was doing a lot of reporting trips in the Amazon, especially in the last couple of years. So I've been to the Amazon several times to do the digging and do the reporting that I've been involved in. And we have a very thorough risk assessment. So we kind of try and map out all the risks in the region that we are visiting. And we plan ahead and get strategies together on how to mitigate those risks. So there is a plan. It doesn't work all the time, but there's a plan. So we're not super exposed to risks. But I've been caught up in very violent situations myself, and I had to kind of defuse it and run away and get out of that situation. But it is what it is. Someone needs to do this job. And honestly, I had the backup of my organization. I'm based in London. I was traveling to Brazil like a correspondent would. The real risk is for local journalists. It's not for me. The real risk is for local journalists that are based on the grounds, that are based in the Amazon, for example. They are the ones also in the front lines. They are living there. So when I'm done with my reporting, I'll go away. They stay.
Yeah, you can get to them.
It's dangerous. It's so much more dangerous to them. I mean, for me, I have resources. I have the backup of my organization. I have a risk assessment. I have everything planned. And then when I'm done with the reporting, I just go back home, which is London now, and I go away. But they are back home. So home is in the Amazon for them, and they are there, and they can be threatened, they can be chased, and all these things can happen to local journalists. So I really want to stress that. So I think the real danger is for local journalists who are still battling to expose all of these issues every single day.
Thank you for calling attention to that. That's interesting, and it's important. Protect your local journalists. Speaking of traveling, going around, are you working on anything you can tell us about right now?
I can get into any specifics, but I can give you an overview of what I'm doing now. So Global Witness is very focused on looking into the financiers of deforestation around the world. So I'm part of a team that's called the Forests team. So I'm in charge of this new initiative that will look into what are the big banks or big asset managers that are providing funding or financing or investing in companies that are linked to deforestation in the major forests around the world. So we were talking about the Amazon, but we're also talking about the Congo Basin. We're also talking about Southeast Asia. So we are looking into the big banks, so the big financiers of these companies. And we are very focused on the agribusiness. So we are looking into traders of agricultural commodities, meat packers, food companies. We are very interested in these sectors because this is a sector that's contributing to the climate crisis. So it's the second worst, just after fossil fuels. But it's not something that's on the mainstream, actually. I think people don't realize that. So at Global Witness, I'm looking into the money, right? So I'm looking into the financiers now. And one of the main interests of my team now is looking into the greenwashing. I'm very interested in green claims or the green pledges of big banks and trying to figure out what they have been doing. So right now I'm looking into ESG funds. So I'm looking into what ESG funds are claiming to do, what are their commitments to certain criteria, and what are the investments, or what are the companies that are investing in? Are they really green? So this is kind of my focus now.
Oh, I'm so excited to read that piece.
Yeah, down the rabbit hole. Fascinating. Wow. There's a lot of shady things and a lot of kind of just buying their way into a lot of those kind of certifications. And
this is a bit of a tricky topic, right? Because finance is definitely not sexy. It's very difficult to turn finance into a sexy thing that people actually care about. So the big banks, they play a key role in all this. So they keep the lifelines of these big companies driving destruction. So it's a really important thing to look into. Although it's complex, it's not a very charming topic. It's difficult to explain, very technical sometimes. So I think my main challenge is going to be finding narratives and finding a good storytelling to kind of link these two elements. So what's going on the ground with all the destruction and violations? with big banks that are very far removed from that reality. So building this bridge, I think that's my next challenge.
And they intentionally make that bridge hard to find, right? That's why you're investigating it, is because it's such an intentional thing that they hide it under language and clauses and, in the supply chain that they don't know about, and then
it's very convenient to hide behind either the complexity or the reliance on your clients' reports about what's going on.
Thank you for what you're doing. It's so necessary and so interesting and fascinating.
Well, thank you for your interest. I've been doing this for a while. I think I don't find it that interesting anymore. I just keep going. And then when I'm invited for a podcast, I was like, okay, are people actually interested in this? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, people are interested in it. It's so cool.
Yeah, starting up, we talk to a lot of business owners that are focused on, creating some sort of innovation in the sustainability world. But I think that what you're doing, not to discount what they're doing, but it takes far more bravery to do what you're doing and to continue to show up and do the work that you're doing. And I really commend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I appreciate all of you and your colleagues and all of the journalists out there that are doing the work to this difficult to hear information out in the world that people really need to wake up to.
Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. I feel that investigative journalism has been portrayed, especially in Hollywood, as like this super glamorous, interesting, cool thing. And the reality is that we're a bunch of nerds analyzing spreadsheets, and from time to time we go on the ground and we do like fun stuff, like talking to people on the ground and doing interviews. But most of the time it's me behind my desk, just like in the middle of several sheets of paper or weird documents and spreadsheets, trying to make sense of all of that.
Pulling your hair out.
Sounds like fun.
We love that kind of stuff. So
okay, well, thank you so much again. And if you could tell the folks at home where they can connect with you, where they can read your work, how to, get a hold of you if they want to give you tips.
That's a great point. So I would welcome anyone who has information about activities of big banks, big international banks specifically, and asset managers who have been involved in any sort of wrongdoing or are investing in controversial companies, to contact me or my colleagues at Global Witness. You can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and now X, or just if you Google my name, you find more information on how to reach out. But you can read my investigations now in major media outlets because what Global Witness does is we do the investigations, we find the stories, and then we partner up with relevant media outlets from Bloomberg, New York Times, The Guardian, BBC, and everyone else to publish and maximize the reach of our stories. So hopefully very soon I'll start publishing more and more stories linking finance to deforestation and holding these big financiers accountable for their actions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.